Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Carla if you are new here, and I make videos about how I show up for myself in hopes of inspiring you to do the same. In today's video, I'm going to be chatting through a self-compassion Q&A of questions that you guys asked me here on YouTube and on my Instagram half of Carla as well. If you've never seen me before or you've never seen any part of this self-compassion series, I'm going to leave the self-compassion series up here, and then I'll also leave a link to my video, which is just generally about how I lost 183 pounds and introducing myself to you guys. This is part 2 of my Q&A for self-compassion. I'll leave that linked up here if you'd like to see the first part. But without further ado, we're going to get into some questions. And my gosh, did you guys have questions? How do we decide that we deserve to be self-compassionate? I think that this is an incredibly interesting question. And I want you to know that every single one of us and everyone who's watching this now deserves to be self-compassionate. You most likely, if you're watching this, are not some kind of murderer, serial killer or terrorist or whatever, some horrible person. You are a normal, regular Jane Doe, and you have probably got some kind of trauma in your life, like many of us. You've probably had people tell you that you are not worthy, or people beat you down, or you've made mistakes in life. We all have. Every single one of us has made mistakes, has done things that we're not proud of, has, let ourselves go in a way, any of those things. We all have a past, but that doesn't mean we don't deserve to be self-compassionate. Every single one of us deserves to be self-compassionate towards ourselves. I want you to know that. That is the most important thing. So I hope that you, from hearing me say that, can understand that you are deserving of self-compassion. And I hope that you decide that you are. But even if you don't decide, I'd also like you to just begin to be self-compassionate. And I do believe with a lot of these types of things, when you begin something, I know for weight loss, for me, when we expect motivation, but actually motivation comes from results. So I would probably hypothesize that starting to be compassionate towards yourself will actually end up breeding more compassion and a greater understanding and a greater sense of love. I'm going to do a separate video on this, but I do know that specifically for me, especially in the last number of weeks, coming really from a place of abundance and gratitude has shifted everything for me. And that's really tied in with my self-compassion work. And the universe is just sending me these wonderful, amazing opportunities. And it's very similar, I do believe, when we start to act from a certain place, that we align ourselves with a certain energy, whether you believe it's energy, whether it's like a physical energy, whether it's God, whether it's the universe, whether it's manifestation, whether it is whatever you want to call it, whether it's parallel universe paradigm, as I've seen now, is another thing. But when you start to just act in a way, start the behaviors of a certain way, things will start to slot into place. And I do believe that that is the same with self-compassion. When you start to treat yourself with just a little bit more kindness, a little bit more love, you'd be surprised. Question 2. There are times when I have no control over a stressful situation, event, and I cannot take action because I have no control over that situation. And this is a real struggle for me. Any advice? It's such a battle at times, as life will always have stressful moments. And that's from Simone Clark. You may not be able to control, Simone, the events, the situations that are happening, but you can control your response to them. Take a very light example. I was producing something and there was a mistake made in the production. And it was my fault, but there were many other players and I didn't have control over the situation. And what I had to do was determine how I was going to respond to that situation. So I could either respond by berating myself for making that mistake, telling myself how worthless I was, how did I make this mistake? Are you an idiot? These are the narrative I would have given myself before. Instead, I was compassionate to myself. I said, oh, that's really annoying that you made that mistake. That's annoying for you. You were really into this. I can't believe this happened, but it's happened. Now, what I can do is I can try to be compassionate to myself and say, you're human, mistakes are made. Let's put an action plan in place to get over this. Another example maybe would be you're at a family dinner and somebody takes a gripe at you for your weight or something like that. While you may not be able to control the situation, you can control how you respond. So you could say to yourself, and speak kindly to yourself as you would to your little sister or your best friend. We're always looking at how we would treat others around us, and we want to turn that in on ourselves. And you can say, that's really annoying that Auntie Phyllis was being a bitch to me today. It's really shit. You don't deserve that. No matter what weight you are or what you're eating, you are still a human being who is deserved of respect and compassion and kindness. And she might be taking some stuff out on her that she feels out on me. But I don't have to absorb that. I can do my blocking. I can go, no, that's okay. You might, at the dinner table, you might not be going, no, Auntie Phyllis, I'm not going to hear that. But you might in your head go, You don't have to agree with it. It's not the truth. So while we may not have control over situations, and there will always be stressful situations, and stress will come up, but compassion, being self-compassionate, is not about controlling the situations. It's about controlling our response and looking at responses rather than reactions. To turn around to Auntie Phyllis, is that what we called her, and start shouting at her, that would be a reaction. And that would be giving energy towards that situation. Instead of reacting and giving that attention out, we're turning that attention into ourselves and treating ourselves with kindness and saying, that was really unnecessary what she said. I understand that you're feeling down now. We're feeling down. I understand that I'm feeling down now because of the way she was treating me. And that's perfectly okay, because not that she did it, but it's perfectly okay to feel these feelings. Your feelings are valid, and validating your feelings will really help you to be more compassionate to yourself. If somebody is calling you names or something, please be compassionate to yourself. That is normal. To be upset by that is a normal reaction. You are valid in your feelings. I hope that answers that question. Please let me know in the comments if you'd like me to delve further in, or we want a part 3 of the Q&A. Somebody asked me, I'm struggling to find something to replace food as a form of comfort. I find that the feeling of hunger feels a lot like constant butterflies I feel from anxiety. It sends me into a tailspin. How does one cope with calorie restrictions and comfort eating? I know I'm harming myself, but those butterflies really scare me. So I think here the important thing is to realize that food is not going to give you that comfort. It gives you the idea of comfort. It gives you the illusion of comfort. There's something inside that is giving you those feelings, that is happening. Something is coming up. Perhaps you're being triggered by something. Perhaps you something is most likely is triggering that you're seeking comfort. So instead of replacing food with comfort, I would suggest looking at the source of those feelings, of what's being triggered. That reaction, what is it again, as I was saying before, this is a reaction, not a response. This is, okay, I have been triggered by something. I feel these feelings. I don't want to feel these feelings. I'm going to suppress them with food. This was my whole life, by the way. This is a thing I did forever. Instead of reacting by suppressing with them, allow yourself a little bit to feel them. It's not going to kill you to feel the feelings. It might help to do it with a therapist. It might help to do it with journaling. If you can't afford a therapist, perhaps journaling, perhaps looking at different sources around maybe BetterHelp or something like that, or looking at maybe a couple of books around self-compassion, maybe Sharu's book, about self-compassion, the kind method. Instead of seeking the comfort, seek the solution to what you are looking to comfort. And in the meantime, until you have sorted that out, try the 20-second rule. This is something that I've done before. So we're triggered. The reaction is to go search for food, but we want to put a barrier between the trigger and the reaction so that we have time for ours to come into our prefrontal cortex and make decisions as an adult. So somebody said my work wasn't good today in my job. I'm triggered and I want to eat to comfort. Let's put 20 seconds between that. Can I wait 20 seconds? Can I sit with these feelings for 20 seconds? Doesn't seem too hard. You can do 20 seconds. Okay, now let's try 30 seconds. And what's happening is, and while you're doing that, move, walk a little bit, walk around the office, walk down the stairs and up the stairs in the office. Have a little, like, you're disrupting that trigger reaction chain, let's call it, by putting something in between. So you're putting movement, you're stopping, and then you're putting movement. Take a deep breath. Okay, Phil just said that to me. Oh, Phil's are really getting it hard today, aren't they? Phil's just said that to me. It's making me feel this kind of way. Let's be compassionate to ourselves. How can we be compassionate to ourselves? Okay, I'm going to treat myself to a little walk now. I'm going to treat myself to a little self-hug. I'm going to breathe. I'm going to move. Just because Phil doesn't like my work doesn't mean that Phil doesn't like me. It's not a judgment on my character. It's a judgment on my work, which is not who I am. Remember, we're talking about perspective. It's having a little bit of perspective. By seeking the reason as to why you are, what it is that you're escaping from, and also by putting a compassionate barrier or a delay between your trigger and your reaction, and allowing yourself to come to that area of response, to allow yourself to feel the feelings a little bit, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, 40 seconds, a minute, and keep going up and move while doing it. Give yourself a hug, take a deep breath, walk outside, and sometimes you'll find that you will feel better after doing that. Not sure what my exact question is. So this is from Lisa. So it's a long one, guys. I'm going to come to you. I keep coming to think of a big part of self-compassion that I want to work towards is trusting your gut or really listening to yourself in what you want. I have been finding that I struggle a lot with how I respond to things because I subconsciously go into the expectation of being polite and responding in a way society dictates correct rather than listening to myself and thinking about how a situation will make me feel or affect me. I find either choice so uncomfortable now that I acknowledge maybe I want to respond differently, but then have guilt that it isn't what is expected of me. But still, honestly, that guilt is small compared to the stress that sometimes comes from doing what is expected of me. I guess my question is, how can I help to change that way of thinking and make it easier to show up for yourself and stand by the thought that this is what I want or this is what's right for me? Sorry, it was a long one. I hope it makes sense. Thank you for all you do, Lisa. Thank you, Lisa. Yes, Lisa, this does make a lot of sense. I too am a reforming people pleaser. It's easier for me to say yes to do something that I don't want to do than say no to something that I don't want to do and take on the burden of having to do it and the guilt and the pressure and the stress. That's not self-compassionate. That's not aligned. And it's not, honestly, healthy. And I use that term very lightly for want of a better term, but I think we need to start to look at this from a self-compassionate and look at how we want to treat others as we want to treat ourselves. In these situations, as with many things, it gets easier with practice. My biggest tip is when you are doing this, when you are refusing a question or a request from somebody, is to do it with compassion towards that person as well as towards you. Let's take, for example, somebody. This happens to me quite a lot. Somebody will ask me to do something. So actually, somebody has asked me recently for the contact details of my therapist. And I don't give the contact details of my therapist for two reasons. One is that she will not see anybody that comes from me, and two, that this is a boundary that I'm not willing to cross. This is a boundary that I have created because I need to keep things for myself. Now, the people pleaser in me wants to ignore my boundaries and give that person the details, even though my therapist won't see that person, but because it's a conflict of interest. But I want to, it's easier for me than, now I have kindly said that they won't do it. However, that person is quite insistent and is coming back again and again. Now, then what can happen is sometimes you can become resentful. I think this is kind of what you're talking about, being stressed, and, you can be resentful of that person if they don't respect your boundaries. What I always try to do is come off the perspective of the person who is asking something and be compassionate towards that person while being compassionate towards myself and respecting my boundaries. And this is obviously within my job sphere, so it's a little bit more complicated, or maybe not a real life, example for you, but I hope that it works. So what I'm trying to do is to say that I have to respect my boundaries first. That's the most important thing. But I can do it with kindness. So I will be responding saying, I know that you're looking for that, but that's not something that I'm willing to do. However, what I can do is suggest that you do X, Y, and Z in order to source an appropriate therapist for yourself. I think that it's really important is to continue to keep your boundaries, to respond to that person with compassion and to not fight. Because when I first started to practice creating my boundaries, I would get quite defensive about my boundaries. So say your mom asks you to, do something and you're in the middle of doing something else and you go no, I'm busy. It's okay, I know that you need this done. I can't do it right now because I'm busy and I need this. I have to do this work or whatever it is that I need to do, or I'm too tired, but maybe I'll be able to schedule in time for you to do it. If there's something that you absolutely don't want to do, that's completely fine. And I want to give you a quote that my lovely sister said, and if this again does get easier. No is a full sentence. No. You don't have to give an explanation. Explain every reason as to why you're not doing something. People don't need an explanation. If they've asked something for you, have requested something for you, you don't have to give them an explanation as to why you're not doing it. You can just say no. And that is it can, even for me, I can feel it in me. It's I don't want to do that. But you have to respect yourself, and it does get easier as you go. The more you do it, the easier it gets, I promise. What are some tools that you use on days when practicing self-compassion is extra challenging? The biggest one that I will do is to ground myself. That is the one, if I can ground myself, that is, if I can make sure I feel my feet, that is really helpful for me to just bring me back into my body and to give me a little bit of perspective. I will also journal and try and work out, not even work out, just freely allow my thoughts out and just do a brain dump on my thoughts and just go, okay, get this out of my head and kind of understand, maybe start to see a bit of perspective about what I'm thinking and why I'm thinking it, or why I'm being so hard on myself at that time. Also, blocking is really good, especially with your negative self-talk, blocking that out and keeping that perspective on why, situations are happening and things like that. But for me, it's grounding, and then a really nice one as well is just a compassionate self-hug. So you can do hand on heart, hand on your solar plexus, on your stomach. Just breathe and just go, okay, I got you. How do you get rid of the immediate guilt of eating something you love? I would pose the question as, why do you feel guilty eating? What is it that you are guilty of? What is the guilt? I would actually pose the question to you is it guilt or is it shame? I think there's a differentiation. Guilt is something, that you have done something wrong and you feel guilty about it. Shame is a societal inclination or perspective that what you're doing isn't okay. And eating is not part of that. I don't know if it was in a vlog, I was telling the story about a man who I went in to buy a slice of cake, to enjoy a slice of cake by myself, completely guilt-free, completely shame-free, on my train home one day. And a man tried to shame me for buying cake. And I'm so free of that now that I was like, how dare you? How dare you try to shame me? Now, I didn't say that at the time. It was afterwards, because I'm not one of those people who can respond really quickly. I don't have that kind of snappy comeback. It's not part of me. But I don't have shame or guilt about eating. But I know that you do. And I think what you need to do is not get rid of the immediate guilt, is to work on what it is that's causing you guilt. What thought processes have caused guilt or shame? And work back towards the source, not the guilt. The shame is an emotional reaction to eating. But there doesn't need to be one of those to eat some food. Because I love cake and I eat cake. And if I eat 4 slices of cake, I go, oh well, I've eaten 4 slices of cake. Tomorrow's another day. Jill asked, how do you tell when you need to do self-compassion or self-care versus goal-orientated mental strength and resilience? Let me try that again. How do you tell when you need to be more self-compassionate or have self-care versus goal-orientated mental strength and resilience? I honestly, Jill, would say that they come hand in hand. I've spoken before about how self-compassion is not about giving yourself a get out of jail free card or writing yourself a sick note from life. I am incredibly goal orientated. However, what I need to do in order to be goal orientated is to not push myself too much, to be able to go, okay, no, that's going to be too much work. I need to take it down a little bit. That's being self-compassionate. Being resilient. I think resilience is really important. I don't think they're an opposite. I don't believe that goal-orientated mental strategy and strength and resilience are the opposite to self-care. I think they come hand in hand. I think that's where you actually have to amalgamate the two and work towards your goals. Because I'm incredibly goal-orientated, incredibly. But it doesn't have to come at a lack of self-compassion. They're not mutually exclusive beings. So I think it's working to find a way to work together. So if you don't reach a deadline, you can be compassionate to yourself. Again, it's not about I think here as well, what's really important is rigorous self-honesty. It's not saying, okay, oh, well, we are very tired, so we're not going to get out of bed now. But I want to go for my walk because I'm training, or my run because I'm training for a marathon. But it's the 6th day in the row, and that's excuses. So we're not using self-compassion as a term of excuse. We're using self-compassion when we're rigorously self-honest with ourselves and going, okay, do I need to go for this run? Am I able to go? When I can, I must. But when I can't, that's okay. I'm going to answer one more question. This is from Marion. How do you distinguish between self-compassion and self-indulgence? I'm worried about the old me returning who excused things and old eating habits which made me overweight returning. Self-compassion is not allowing yourself to overeat. Self-compassion, that's not the same thing. I think that that's something that's really important here. And I think there's a confusion between what is self-compassion and what is a get out of jail free card. The biggest part of this here is with this rigorous self-honesty. You have to be really honest with yourself. And that to me is one of the most important parts of self-compassion, is being your own best friend or your own parent or whomever, a figure of authority, but not ruling with an iron fist, ruling with compassion, saying to yourself, okay, like say your old habits returning, maybe you order a takeaway, let's say for example, and you order too much and you eat a bit too much. Rigorous self-honesty is going, okay, I didn't actually need to eat that. That was too much. Self-compassion is going, you're human, you've eaten too much, that's okay. Tomorrow we will do better. Being self-indulgent will go, I deserve this. Do you get me? The difference? When you do something that isn't bringing you towards your goals or isn't aligned with how you want your behavior to be, it's about not berating yourself. So you get your Chinese, you eat loads of it, you overeat, instead of being self-compassionate, which is saying, okay, we overate there, let's try a bit better. Being indulgent, being saying, oh fuck it. The other option is to berate yourself and be like, you absolute piece of shit, can't believe you've done that, you've ruined everything, throw the baby out with the bathwater, what are you like, you're worthless, destroying your super ego again and again and again and again with that negative narrator being like, oh God, here we go again, you useless piece of. Does that make sense? So there's a difference between self-compassion, self-indulgent, and self-beration. Self-compassion is being rigorously honest with yourself and being kind to yourself when you do make mistakes or you do things that are not aligned with how you want to behave, and striving for the best that you can in the future. Self-indulgent is that kind of like, I've had one now, might as well, have it all. And then self-beration is where you start to just like beat down on yourself for no reason. It's not going to help in any way. It's not going to make it better. In fact, actually, the self-compassion is going to help to build your superego by being understanding and compassionate with yourself and continuing on. My stomach is growling. Do you mind? And continuing on, because it's going to give you the ability to go, okay, no, I hold my hands up. That wasn't great, but I can do better tomorrow. Guys, I'm going to love you and leave you because this is a very, very long video and all of my batteries are about to waste. I hope you've enjoyed the self-compassion series. This does bring this to a close. Please check out the other videos in the series if you haven't seen them already. And if there's anything else, any other topics that you would like me to specifically cover, please do leave them down in the comments. Guys, please don't forget to subscribe, turn on the notifications so you never miss a video. Please don't forget. It helps me out so much and it helps me to be able to continue to make this kind of content and share it with you guys. I will, as I said, love you and leave you, and I will chat to you all very... Oh, we need an emoji for the bottom. What are we going to put as an emoji? Instead of an emoji, leave me a heart emoji, but also leave me one way that you are going to be compassionate to yourself this week, please. Leave me one thing that you are going to, either a behavior that you're going to work on changing or some way that you are going to be self-compassionate towards yourself this week. For me, my self-compassionate this week is going to be prioritizing sleep, getting to bed at a very reasonable hour so I can get up and not be exhausted the minute I wake up. That is my way of being self-compassionate this week. So let me know yours down in the comments. I'll love you and leave you, and I'll talk to you very soon. Bye guys.